Hi and welcome to Sporting Memories Weekly. This week we'll be looking at 1973 and we'll be covering football and golf. We'll have another topic in our Sporting Memories 100 Objects, and also we'll be hearing from Donna and how we can keep fit and healthy this week. So firstly I'll say hi to Gareth.
Hi Angie.
Hiya, and to Rob.
Hi Angie.
Hi, and we'll get going with the first topic. Gareth, do you want to go first?
Yeah, the first topic is Clough and Taylor quits. And this is about the enigmatic Brian Clough and his support in his Robin, if you like, to his Batman, Taylor, who were an incredible pair, whichever club they seemed to go to. But his time at Derby is remarkable because he was really, he'd been at Hartlepool before, and he'd done well at Hartlepool, but Hartlepool is fourth division team, but he'd done very well with them. And Derby were a team languishing in the second division. And within a couple of seasons, when he managed to get the team that he wanted, he brought in players who took that Derby team then to be equal with the best in Europe. But the way he did it was very much in his own style, and he believed that when he said something was good for the club, it was good for the club, and the club should just go along and follow everything that he wanted and everything he did. And of course, that didn't go down very well with board directors in those days who were used to running football clubs as if it was almost a hobby in the early 1970s, and in a lot of cases, family run events. I don't know what you remember of Brian time at Derby, Rob?
Yeah, it's pretty much as the way you described it. Starting off at Hartlepool just as an unknown. He'd been a great player. He played for England, then got a bad knee injury, retired when he was about, I'm not sure he was even 30 by the time he retired. But he'd met Peter Taylor during that time because I think Taylor was a goalkeeper at Middlesbrough, and that was one of Clough's teams. So they kind of formed an association at that point. But Taylor was 6 years older than Clough, so there was quite a gulf in age at that point. And I think he had to do a bit of work to get the Hartlepool chairman to let him sign in the first place. But then, of course, they went on to Derby. And you're right, he had a bit of a fraught relationship with Sam Longson, who was the chairman there. I think Clough was prone to signing players and then telling the chairman he'd done it, spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on a player, and that didn't go down too well, I don't think. I think he did that, for example, with Colin Todd. The chairman supposedly turned up at a training session, asked who he was, and Clough said, "Oh, that's the new centre half." So you can probably understand there was a bit of a clash between the two. And I think he was regularly resigning. He did it very often. And if he wanted something, he would say, "Well, that's it, I'm going, I'm off." And most of the time the board said, "Yeah, okay then, Brian, we'll go along with it." But eventually, I think Sam Longson called his bluff and finally sacked him and Taylor. And I think it was 1973. Yeah.
Well, Clough also, his relationship with Longson, as you say, was pretty poor, and he got into trouble and was in problems because they said at the Man United game that he had actually, Clough had given two fingers salute to Busby and Edwards, the chairman of Manchester United.
Yeah.
Well, actually he wasn't. He was giving two fingers to the chairman of Derby because the chairman of Derby hadn't provided tickets for the families, including his wife, to go to the match. So, and also, if you remember, we talked, quite a few weeks ago now, about when Clough was at Hartlepool, when you say the chairman there sacked him, and there was a revolt, and in the end, the chairman had to leave. Mm-hmm. And Clough thought, what worked before, I'll try again. So they tried to get a movement to get rid of Longson.
There was demonstrations in the street, there was processions, banners, all sorts of stuff to try and get him back. And there was a belief that maybe the players would go on strike, but that didn't happen. And lo and behold, the manager that turned up to replace him was Dave Mackay,
Ah,
who had been his captain. So there wasn't much loyalty there either. So I think he was a bit surprised at that. And of course, by the time it got to that stage, it was too late. Couldn't do anything about it.
yeah. But I was thinking when I read about this Clough derby, I think it's like Ferguson at United. You know, they're synonymous. Ferguson United, Shankly Liverpool, Clough derby, and the one that always strikes me is Alan Kirbishley at Charlton, and he was there for 6 years, I think it was, or maybe longer. And he did so well for Charlton, and then he just said, you know, oh, they just mutual agreement. He's done enough. You know, there's nothing more I can do for that club. And at the time, I think Charlton were about 6th in the league or something. And then when he left, of course, they then just slipped down, and now I don't know what division they're in now. Charlton Athletic.
They might be in the Championship. I think they may be in League One.
Right.
But, you know, flirting with both leagues at the moment, I think.
But you have this leader at the front, the manager, and you think games are won and lost by the 11 players on the pitch. Yeah, well, they are, but they need to be inspired by the people.
I think the Forest fans lay claim to Brian Clough as well, though, Gareth, I'm sure, given the European Cup twice there. So, yeah. So, done what he did, sort of unfashionable clubs, is quite remarkable, really.
I also remember a clip of Clough stood on the side of a pitch, and one of his players is being substituted, I think. And as he came off, Clough gave him a clip. He just
do
you remember that?
Yeah, he was well known for that sort of thing. I think he was really a maverick. He wouldn't get on with that sort of behaviour nowadays, but maybe he would moderate it. I don't know. He certainly was a man of his time. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, apparently player discipline was very strong with him. He wouldn't tolerate people being unsportsmanlike. So
no, that's true. That's why he caused so much trouble at Leeds when he went there, and he more or less accused the Leeds players of cheating and being dirty players and whatever. But then again, he only lasted 44 days there, so that didn't work out either.
Can you remember the famous quote he said to them?
About throwing the medals in the bin or whatever. Yeah,
he said, "Put your medals in the bin because you won them by cheating."
That's right.
He hated. It's this discipline thing again, and the fair play. I guess that comes from the fact that he had his leg damaged.
Yeah, it was a bad knee injury. Probably one nowadays that he would recover from, but then I think it was a cruciate ligament, which there was no coming back from it at that stage.
I used to enjoy his interviews on TV as well, but we'll come on to that later.
Unpredictable, yeah.
Hello, good morning, welcome back. Can't quite believe how quickly the weeks are flying in. That is, just seems like yesterday I did the last broadcast, so here we are again, hopefully helping you and supporting you through our post-lockdown period of getting back outside and hopefully getting back outside with a bit of confidence and the ideas that we're providing in the Sporting Pink. I really hope that they are making a difference, and if you're not using them, then maybe you're passing them on to a neighbour or a family member, because that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? We're sharing the information and we're looking out for one another. So I really hope it's been useful, and we'll just try our best every week to hopefully give you one or two ideas that will just help you on that journey back to what we call normality. If we ever do get normality, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, we'll do what we can to help you with that. And before you know it, we'll be back round the table at Sporting Memories, having a good old chat and having a game of boccia or new age curling, or all these types of things. And then hopefully some of the exercises that you've been doing whilst we've been away, we can do in our clubs, and you can show off what you've been up to, because that's part of it as well, isn't it? So this week we're obviously continuing the theme of building that confidence to get everybody to a point where you feel that you're okay to go back outside and mix with people and be sociable, that sort of thing. And this week we're looking at different ways of exploring how disabled people can be active and stay active whilst at home. So adapting exercises and having fun with it. So I've been doing a wee bit of looking around on the interweb, and there's a couple of really good resources that I'd like to point your way. The first one is the Activity Alliance. They've compiled a whole list of exercises, advice, workouts, videos, activity guides, all to support disabled people, and it's all really for helping you to move around more at home, as I said, build that confidence for when it's time to go back outside. And so along with that, they've produced a downloadable guide called the Be Active Guide. Yeah, so it's being active, an everyday guide for people living with an impairment or health condition. And I've read through it, and it's really interesting, and a lot of it actually supports the messages that we've been putting out, which is around building activity into your daily routine so that it doesn't feel like something extra that you're doing. So building it as part of your daily routine and something that you enjoy, because if it's not something you enjoy, the chances are you're not really going to keep doing it, are you? So this guide's really useful, and I think it just gives you a bit of a reassurance as to, you know, despite what impairment you have or which health condition you're living with, there is something that everybody can do. And I think that's a really important message, that, you know, it's an inclusive guide, and you'll hopefully find something in there that will suit you. And because it's downloadable, you could print it off at home and just have it as a wee handy reference. So that's one to check out. And there's another one, and another couple of really good videos that Parasport have put out, and they're home workouts. And one of their instructors, Chris, has produced 2 workouts. One of them is around sort of stretching and mobility. So there's a seated option if you're in a wheelchair, but there's also a standing option if you're not. So there's 2 different options, which I think is really good. And then the second workout is a bit more of an aerobic routine, so that's, you know, raising your heart rate, that sort of thing. And I've watched them both, and I actually think they're really good. Both are about 15 minutes long. You might not be able to do every exercise, which is absolutely fine. You know, the workout it's ideal for people who probably haven't taken part in any activity for a while, so it's that sort of first step. So the exercises are really gentle, there's no equipment, all you need is just a wee bit of space and to follow Chrissy's instructions, and they're really good because it encompasses quite a full range of movements, and hopefully just sort of gets your body in a position where you're ready to go to maybe try a bit of gardening or go for a walk, that sort of thing. So yeah, they're really good, and it actually fits in quite nicely with something that we did as Sport and Memories last week. So we gathered together again as a Sport and Memories family across the UK to celebrate the Euros, and it was really nice. Obviously this was virtually, it was done over Zoom, and there was about 45 of us, including staff, volunteers and our members, and it was really nice to see everybody come together. So I was asked to do some exercises and some stretches as part of the get together, which I was obviously really happy to do, and it actually ties in really nicely with Chrissy's stretching and mobility exercises. So because it was football themed, we all had our tops and our scarves on, and we used the scarves as a way of doing your stretches. Now today I'll show you a couple of those what those stretches are, but I don't have a scarf with me today, but what I do have is a towel. Actually that's a dog towel, which is why it's quite filthy, so apologies. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a scarf, if you have a tea towel, maybe a pair of leggings or a pair of tights, or just something that you can sort of hold like that, then that's perfect. So one of the exercises, and it was really nice just to sort of get your upper back really sort of stretched, and your shoulders and your arms, and it was just a really nice one. So if you grab your towel like this and you push your arms up so that they're nice and straight, and what you can feel immediately is that nice stretch across your back, and make sure that you're pulling your shoulders back as well, so you're getting that full range of stretch. And it's quite nice, and you can feel it in the backs of your arms too, and you just sort of hold that position, and if you want you can sort of tilt to the sides so you're getting that side stretch as well, and then the other way. And I just thought that was quite a nice one. And then pretending like you've got your scarf behind your neck, and then you're sort of pulling the towel or the scarf away from each other, so again you're getting that stretch right across your back. And if you're sat down quite a lot, it's quite a nice one to do, because it's sort of, you know, loosening off your, well, here really, your shoulders and your upper back, and it just sort of kind of gets that part of you moving. So yeah, the Chrissy's exercises are much more detailed than that, but that was just to give you a flavour of what we've been up to as well at Sport and Memories. So yeah, I think the videos are really good, the download's really good. It goes into a little bit more detail than what we've been chatting about over the last few weeks, in terms of you know, if you're in a wheelchair or have some certain physical disabilities. So yeah, it's really good, and again, it's building confidence and taking us to that next stage. So I'll see you next week, and I think next week we'll have a wee bit of a recap of the previous weeks. So just so we don't miss out on anything, and just a reminder that everything that I chat about today is in your Sport in Pink, so make sure you're signed up for that as well, and everything is recapped there. So until next week, do those stretches, and yeah, take care.
So the next one is another football, and it's The Clown Has Last Laugh. Who wants to go first?
I'll take that one, I think, Angie. Yeah, that's another one about England failing at the last hurdle. I think this one, I can remember watching the game with my dad, who, as I've said before, was English, so that was quite an experience. Everyone thought that the England were going to win that game, and Brian Clough was. I mean, the quote that there is there, calling the goalkeeper a clown. Well, that almost set Tomaszewski up to have a brilliant game, which is what he did. And he kept Poland in the game through all manner of saves. But in those days, foreign goalkeepers weren't really held in sort of high esteem in England. You know, they felt they were a bit flaky, that they would punch the ball all the time. You know, they didn't hold on to it, which I suppose was true, but they just had a different style. There was a lot of good goalkeepers out there, and he proved to be one on the day. Because England missed chance after chance. Then, of course, as often happens, one of the England players, Norman Hunter, made a blunder, and that was it. The ball was in the net, and England were fighting to get back into the game at that point. They needed to win it because of the group as it stood at that point to qualify for the World Cup. And well, history tells you they didn't do it. You remember it, Gareth?
I do, yeah. But it was a. I think the problem was that the expectation was England were going to walk into that World Cup because they'd done so well. They'd won 66. Mm-hmm. 70 was historical, fantastic performance, and a great games in 1970. So everybody went in there with a good feeling, and especially when England were given a group which was only a 3 group, and in there was Poland, who people mistakenly didn't rate, and Wales. And everybody thought, well, Wales get beaten in the British Championships regularly, and did get beaten 3-0, I think, in the British Championships that year. But it was a funny group because Wales beat England. Wales didn't beat England. Wales beat Poland. England beat Wales, and then Poland beat England. So after the 3 games, everybody had sort of won 1 game. And then Wales and England drew in Wembley. I can't remember the other Wales Poland. So everything was very balanced. And then it came to this game, and as you say, it seemed like it's just a matter of, well, England will now find the form because they'd beaten Austria something like 7-0 or in a friendly the previously, and sort of everybody said, well, that's it now. England have found the form; they're going to win. But that Polish team, though, was the beginning of an era of Polish football, which was outstanding. And in the World Cup, listen to this, in 1974, during that tournament, they beat Argentina, Italy, Sweden, and Yugoslavia. Only losing to the only team they lost to was West Germany in the semi-final, and in the third and fourth playoff, they beat Brazil.
Right,
So,
yeah.
you know, that's not a bad team, is it? You know,
They had some great players like Dana and Domarski, Kadocha, Lato, who to us were unknown at that point. And I think that played perfectly into the Poles' hands because they knew they had a good side and they were very, very quick. You just need to look at the goal they scored to understand that. They had very, very fast players up front. And England, I think, were on the way down. They still had two players from 1966 in the team at that point. Norman Hunter and Martin Peters were still playing at that point. So yeah, I think it was an underestimation. Maybe Ramsey's style of play was getting a bit outmoded at that point, because he'd been playing like that since the mid '60s. Games move on, but then of course he was sacked after that. Not long after that. So the whole thing was a complete disaster as far as everyone was concerned, I think.
I always say this though when we talk about England playing at Wembley, is that I honestly believe that Wembley inspires other teams to do well. Now, you know, like we talked some weeks ago about Ardiles, Argentinian, saying his dream was to play at Wembley. We've had other teams. I remember there's a game, I don't know if you remember it, Rob. It was England-Greece. And I think I don't know if it was a European Championship or a World Cup. And the result was 0-0. And at the end of the game, you would swear Greece had just won the World Cup. They went mad. And there is just something about Wembley, you know, that every players from all over the world want to play at. And it does inspire and the opposition to really.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, Scotland, for example, you know, when they go to Wembley, they're inspired.
Absolutely, yeah, that's true. Yeah. You would say the same of Wales as well, though, Gareth, I'm quite sure. But yeah, because it's, you know, people will say it's the home of football or where football started, whatever. It's got a long, long history. Even though it's a new ground now, it's still on the same site. But in those days, you mean walking to a game at Wembley when you saw the Twin Towers, yeah, it would give you shivers, because it wasn't a place that football fans got to very often. It was just cup finals and international matches. So it was an experience to go to a match in a place like that.
And it's not just football, of course. The NFL players love it. They think it's brilliant. Rugby league, I've been to a number of rugby league finals there, and it is just an inspiring place. Now, but genuinely, this is going to sound odd, but I do, in a sense, feel sorry for England that they are playing with this inspiring ground, etc. And at the time, I think when they were building the new Wembley, England played at Old Trafford, did they? Newcastle United's ground, St James Park, etc. And I think they had quite good results. You know, they had good results. And I think part of me said maybe that's what England should do in the future. What do you think, Rob?
Well, they do that in a lot of countries. They don't have national stadiums. Spain, for example, they'd have the two big grounds at Madrid and Barcelona. So they don't have a national stadium as such. Italy too, I think they would put the games around the various big clubs. So it's not an unknown feature. And what it does do is means that the FA or whoever, the Football Association in any country's got to spend a vast amount of money on a stadium that only gets used not very often. So maybe they could put that to better use. Maybe that's what other countries do. They think, well, we've got big grounds, we'll just take it around the country and spread it around like that. That's
sure
in Scotland anyway, that, you know, Hampden is a historic place, but is it past its date as far as a venue that the team should be using?
I'm sure there's somebody watching this will be saying you're a heretic. You should never.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say something. Yeah, and there's a heretic because I remember when they were building Wembley, and they moved the FA Cup final on the Winners' Cup final down to Cardiff.
Yeah.
And there was John Littlejohn in the Daily Mail was going berserk, saying that they should never have been taken out of England. Why take it down to the Principality Stadium or the Millennium it was there? And the football fans loved it. They had a great time, but certain people just did not believe it should be done.
Well, that's history now, because I mean, Wembley, they're going to use it for forevermore now. So I don't think that debate will ever come up again.
No, you're right.
He taught me to walk,
Hi, my name is Mark Fleming. I'm the Scottish Director of Sports Chaplaincy UK. My main sporting memory goes back to 1998 when Partick Thistle, which was the club that I've always supported, they were looking in a really bad way financially. It looked like they were going to the wall, but a group of supporters started the Save the Jags campaign, and as a result of their incredible fundraising efforts, Partick Thistle were in fact saved and still going strong to this day, thankfully. But during that time at the club, there was a lot of concern, anxiety, and the manager at the time felt he was more of a social worker than a football coach. And so the club thought it would be a good idea to bring somebody in to provide pastoral support to everybody at the football club. So supporting people in terms of their mental, emotional and spiritual well-being. And I was that person. I was appointed in 1998 as the club chaplain, which was fantastic. I was given my own kit, and so this is my favourite sporting object. This was my training kit with Rev on the front. The manager at the time thought it would be a good idea for me to train with the players so that I could build up a good relationship with them, so they would know me, like me, trust me, and then hopefully come to me with all their woes and problems. And it was said to me by one of the coaches that I wasn't the worst, although I would certainly contest that. I think most definitely I was. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Partick Thistle at that time. When I started as chaplain, Partick Thistle went on an incredible run of form. We won 6 out of 7 games. Now, in the realm of Partick Thistle folklore, that's miraculous. And I remember one of the directors at the time came up to me and said, "God is clearly on our side, that's why we're doing so well." And I was very quick to point out that it was nothing to do with me, that I wasn't a witch doctor, and it was purely down to the performance of the manager and the players. I'm so glad that I said that, because we went on to lose 6 out of the next 8 games, and the poor manager got the sack, and I would have been out the door with him. But, you know, that's the way football goes. We eventually got another manager in, and it was the great John Lambie, who I'm sure many of you will remember well. So at that time, John was very happy for me to continue training with the players. One thing I didn't show you in my training talk, was the fact that we had 2 incredible kit men, Ricky and Chico, and they decided that they would want to really give me the same kind of measure of recognition as the player. So they put my name on the back, except it wasn't quite my name. They put God we mate. I think they missed an apostrophe and an S, but I'll let them off with that. On my boots, they wrote God's wee pal. So I certainly didn't need a dog collar to let people know that I was the chaplain. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Partick Thistle, training with them every week on a Friday. One particular story comes to mind where we had a chiropodist called Kate, who was in looking after the boys' feet every Friday. And she said to John Lambie, I think this was maybe after a couple of years, I used to come into training and I would exchange a few, hellos and chit-chat with Kate, never anything deeper than that. And she turned to John Lambie one day and she said, "John, there's one of the players," and she says, "I've seen him faithfully turn up to training every single Friday. He's a lovely lad, and yet you never seem to give him a game. I feel right sorry for him. The poor lad's obviously not got God on his side." To which John Lambie replied, Kate, he's the beaten chaplain. Of course, God's on his side. So yeah, train with him every week. My favourite memory of that training was probably my only moment of glory, and that was in a bounce game where I scored a 35-yard half volley screamer into the top corner of the net after a Mark McNally knockdown. Nearly said lockdown. But yeah, you know, apart from that, I was mince. Well, let's be honest about that. You know, sometimes if the gaffer was short for players to even up sides in a bounce game, he would give me a game. And I remember one particular occasion where, as per usual, as was my experience in the school playground, when it came to last pick, and it was me, the captain of the side that had to pick me basically said, "Gaffer, can I not play with a man down? It would be better than having the Rev in my team. You know how bad he is," and that wasn't quite how he put it. So you certainly felt it sometimes, you know, but it was a great laugh at the same time. I remember going to the manager's office one particular day and saying, "Gaffer, you know, I really think I'm beginning to frustrate some of the lads when you put me in these bounce games. So you're maybe better, mate, just leaving me running about with the lads and maybe doing a bit of, you know, passing drills, but the bounce games is a step too far." He says, "Listen, son, it's like this. See, on a Friday morning, I like the boys to relax and have a good time." And he says, "They get a right laugh watching you fall on your backside every week. So don't think I'm giving you a player because you're a player." So there you go. So one final couple of things I want to show you that bring back very special memories. My best friend at Partick Thistle was the club captain, Danny Lennon. And when Danny finished playing at the club, he gifted me his top, which I still play. It's more likely now I'll play walking football than normal football, but I'm really grateful to Danny for giving me his top. And also I became very, very close with the manager, John Lambie. In fact, when John sadly passed away, I had the privilege of conducting his funeral. But sometime just after he retired, he gave me a very special gift, which I continue to cherish to this day and wear on special occasions, and it's this. It was his very own Partick Thistle kilt, which he gifted me. He said to me that he was too skinny to get into it now, and so he wanted me to have it. And so whenever I see this kilt, whenever I wear this kilt, it gives me tremendous joy and happy memories of working with the gaffer, the great Lambino, John Lambie. Hope that brings back some treasured memories to you if you happen to be a Thistle fan as well.
To the next one. So now we have nap hand for player. So Gareth, do you want to go first?
Right. Well, we discussed Gary Player some weeks ago, and he was the first sort of non-American to win the Grand Slam, etc. But this is an interesting competition, the Piccadilly World Match Play, where there were just 8 players in a knockout competition. I see Tony Jacklin was there. But this was played at Wentworth, and I noticed they said a 7-foot putt at the 36th hole. Well, of course, the Wentworth they were playing there was the one that had the old Wentworth before they redesigned the 18th hole. Right. So you had to be very brave on the 18th to either decide you could hit it. There's a brook running across the green, the fairway, sorry. And you have to be brave. Do I be brave and think I can clear that and then have an easier second shot into the green? Or do I lay up the first one and then have a hardest shot into the second? So, but now I think they made the decision easier in the sense that it's more obvious which one to do. But have you ever been to Wentworth, Rob? Have you ever been down there?
No, I haven't been to golf in England, really. The Piccadilly, that is very much a sponsors tournament. Piccadilly cigarettes or tobacco or whatever. There was a lot of tobacco sponsorship at that point, and I think still today when you've got the Dunhill, there's a lot of debate about that. I think they've expanded their products now away from cigarettes, but and they held it in the middle of October too, which in anywhere in Britain at that time would be a bit of a risk given the potential weather conditions, and it's almost autumn, which on a golf course isn't great. There'll be leaves flying about all over the place. So I don't know what the weather was like that in that one, but I think the players enjoyed it though because of the prize fund. You know, the winner for that got £10,000, which was a massive amount. Then compared to the Open winner, for example, that year only got £5,500. So
Oh wow!
a really lucrative competition to play in if you were invited. And I think that again that would be down to management and sponsors. Before you even got an invite, because they weren't the best players necessarily the best players in the world. I think player beat Graham Marsh in the final that year.
Yep.
That Rodney Marsh, the cricketer, that's his brother.
Oh wow!
A good Australian player, but not at the top end of the spectrum. When you think that Nicholas and Trevino, all these guys are still out there. I don't know how they came about picking the players to compete in it.
I suppose who was available was the important thing.
I think it had something to do with there was a management company then called IMG. I can't remember the name of the guy that had it, but he was a big golf fan, and I'm sure he was picking players that were related to the management team as well. So make this field as strong as it could, but also to take that into account as well. And remember too, because it was played in England, or I think most times it was played in England, you'd have to have local players in it as well. So Peter Oosterhuis and Tony Jacklin were in it. Neither of them at that point were at the top end.
Was this replaced by the BMW, or was it just a coincidence they both played at Wentworth, do you think?
No, I think over the years the sponsors changed. I can't remember if it's still played now, but the format was the same. It's just that the sponsorship changed. That was all.
Right. Yeah, you're right about. I was thinking that too when seeing the Piccadilly, because you talk about the Benson and Hedges tournaments and the John Player on the Formula One. I mean, that was an iconic car, wasn't it? The John Player.
Yeah, it was.
I think everybody out of Scaletics kit had to have a John Player.
Yeah, the black one with the JPS gold lettering on the side. So advertising is effective.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even remember who was driving it. That's how good the advertising was.
Oh, I know, yeah.
That'll be a question for a later date.
Right, shall we move on? Next article is Sunderland take 1-goal lead. Rob, do you want to go first with this one?
Yeah, more football. Had a lot of football recently. Yep. Well, this is Sunderland playing in a European competition, which wasn't an occurrence that happened very often, but they'd won the FA Cup the year before when they beat Leeds famously at Wembley in 1973. Another losing final for Leeds, but so that was Sunderland going into the European competition really for pretty much the first time. They were doing quite well, I think, in it, but ultimately they lost the match against their Portuguese opponents. They'd won the first leg, I think, 2-1 at Roker Park, but they lost the second leg 2-0. So they had 2 or 3 games in Europe, which I think would have been a bonus for them, because being a second division team, I think their focus at that point would be to try and get promoted into the first division. You remember much about it, Gareth?
I don't, because this would have been, I don't remember much of this because it would be the early rounds. But an interesting sideline, if you came out of this was the second round.
Yeah.
And in the first round, they played and beat Budapest, Vasas Budapest.
Uh-huh.
Now the interesting thing was, and how times have changed. Have you been to Budapest, Rob?
No, I haven't. No, I've been to lots of cities in Europe, but not Budapest. No.
One of our offices used to be in Budapest, so I used to go regularly. But in this tournament, and why I mean is that Vic Hallam, who used to play for Sunderland,
Yeah.
he had a Hungarian father, and when they went to play Budapest, he met two of his aunties for the first time. That's how things have changed. They weren't allowed to meet as a family. We take it for granted, don't we? You know, you've said you've been to a number of cities in Europe, and as I say, I was going to Budapest and work. But in those days, you couldn't get into those Eastern
No,
European.
yeah. Couldn't get
And
out
you
of
didn't
them.
mind you, Celtic did well that year.
Yeah, they got to the semi-final, lost to Atletico Madrid, which is a really violent game, I think, that one. Madrid were a really tough side.
Yeah.
And had 3 or 4 Argentinian players on the side who were a bit close to the wind when it came to sticking to the rules. But Celtic lost, I think, in penalty kicks in that one. And then the final, I think, was Bayern Munich, and that was a 1-1 draw. And you'll never guess, they had to play the replay, Gareth, 2 days after that.
Oh wow! They
So-
had a replay of the European Cup.
Yeah, 1974. Yeah. Played it 2 days later, and Bayern won 4-0. It's the only time I think that the final's been replayed for sporting reasons. I'm not sure if there's been any other times where anything else has intervened, but that was a draw. So,
Do you know where it was played?
I can't remember. No, I don't.
I find that's unbelievable. I'm a replay or something like that. We're so used to penalties, extra time, then
I
penalties.
think, well, they didn't have that
No.
available then, or whatever. But there you go, 1-1, and then 4-0 2 days later. So. And there's loads of statistics in this one about the other matches too. I think Spurs got to the final of the UEFA Cup eventually, but they lost to the Dutch side, I think, at that point. And it's cited as one of the reasons why Bill Nicholson resigned from Spurs eventually, because there was so much trouble in the match. He was just disillusioned by the whole thing, I think. Yeah, there was a lot of performances in Europe that year for British teams.
Do you think it was at the time when British teams had a sort of reputation, maybe led by Leeds United, apologies to Leeds United fans, of being very physical, and the game was very physical. So when other European teams played them, they sort of went that bit further to outdo the British teams, if you like,
Possibly, yeah. I think the styles were vastly different as well, Gareth, too. They just played in different ways. I think the British football is much closer to European now than it is. There's more passing and whatever. Whereas then British football was very fast and get the ball forward as quickly as possible. It wasn't unskillful, it was just a different way of playing.
Yeah, the Bayern Munich coach, I can't remember, the famous coach, when they played Spurs in the 70s, said English football is very exciting, but is naive and they'll never win anything. And in that game, when they played Spurs that night, they lost 3-0. But never mind. Something I always remember. He was one of the West German players that had won the World Cup. He's very famous. But I just remember the coach. I can't remember the player's name though.
Okay, so next we have our Spot the Ball. So who do we know in this picture then?
Do you know anybody, Gareth?
Yeah, we know the guy who's in the middle, I think. The guy who's sort of like facing us and falling backwards. Because I think if you look at his left arm, I think he's got a plaster on it.
Ah, yeah. It's one of the Van der Kerkhoffs, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Rene van der Kerkhoff.
Yeah, the brothers played.
Yeah, both brothers, 2 brothers were playing for them, but Rene, that plaster, of course, is the one that caused the controversy where the Argentinians in the final complained about the plaster, that he shouldn't be allowed to play while wearing it, even though he had played in earlier matches with the same plaster, clearly. And the game was delayed while they had to put extra bandages on his arm. So, and also the Argentinian team waited 5 minutes, kept the Dutch team on the pitch waiting for them to arrive, so the crowd could get worked up. So the game was not played in the best of
No,
feeling.
I think that was true right through the whole competition. It was a bit. There was always an edge to it because, well, Argentina was a military government at that point, so you know, men with guns all over the place. It wasn't a really conducive atmosphere to be playing in. And I think it was Argentina's winter at the time as well, so you know, it was quite cold at a lot of the matches too for the fans anyway. But the Argentinian player, I recognise him, Gareth. That's Mario Kempes.
Ah, right. It's funny because of that World Cup, as soon as I saw that picture and I looked at the teams who were in the final, I saw Kempes, and I just remember the phrase, Kempes, Luque, 1-0.
Yeah.
I think
David Coleman.
I think it was David Coleman was commenting on a match. I mean, Kempes, Luque, 1-0. And that was, the two of them combined so well throughout the tournament, didn't they? They became, I think Kempes was the star, wasn't he?
I mean, notwithstanding that, Gareth, I mean, Holland got that game to the extra time, so they were well in it. And I think they almost scored in the last minute, which would have won them the cup. And they were playing without Johan Cruyff, who refused to go. He didn't want to be part of the squad. I think he'd fallen out with the Dutch FA, and there was allegations that there'd been threats of kidnapping against his wife and children. So that was in the background too. So effectively, they probably didn't have their best player in the squad at all.
Yeah, I was looking at the Dutch team. There was Rudy Krol, Neeskens, the two brothers, as you say, and Johnny Rep. So there's a bloody good squad. And I think for the purist sort of non-committed fans, everybody was hoping this was the Dutch team to do it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, especially the way they played in 1974. Again, they had chances to win that final against Germany, again against the hosts in the home ground. So they weren't going to do it easily if they ever did it.
Yeah.
They had a great side then as well.
Yeah, they played this total football, was it they called?
Yeah, that's right. That's where the players were interchangeable. Really, that's what they meant by that. I think so. You know, they would move around the pitch and try and disrupt the opposition by going out of position effectively. So it was hard for the opposition to pick a player up and know that he was going to stay there and let him be marked. So Cruyff would be all over the place. Neeskens was the same. Even Krol could have played centre forward, I think, if they needed him to.
So Argentina decided to mark their players permanently, like.
I think so, yeah. Although, in fairness, they had some great players. Ardiles and Villa both went to Spurs after that, so yeah, they were a good side too. When they concentrated on playing, they were a decent team.
That's it for us this week. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Gareth and to Rob. And please, if you'd like to join us again, please do. We'll be back next week. And if you'd like to go back at our old sessions, then please have a look at sportingmemoriesnetwork.com, where you'll be able to find all the other sessions that we've done. And also you'll be able to have a look at our Sporting Memories Weekly. Thank you. Bye-bye.